Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Alonso here with Christy and Matt. And I don't know if this movie was meant for theaters and now
It
not. But
was.
anyway,
It
there
must
we
have
go.
been. There's no
It
way there's a movie
was.
with Tom Hanks as the captain of a World War II warship that's not going into theaters.
You're right. Okay,
Right?
well anyway, because of the times we're in, premiering on Apple TV Plus, it's Greyhound. Matt, explain it to us.
So don't be confused if you're watching this on Apple Plus and the first thing that comes up says Sony, because this is a Sony Pictures film that was intended for theatrical release. In fact, you might have caught some of the stuff that Tom Hanks has said in interviews about how he's very disappointed. It was a heartbreaker, he says, and then had to walk that back a little bit because then say Apple Plus saved us. But this was supposed to be a theatrical release. Tom Hanks wrote this script.
Yes.
It's adapted from a C.S. Forester novel called The Good Shepherd, and it is about a ship that is part of a convoy escorting freight vessels to England during what was called the Battle of the Atlantic, where German U-boats were picking off cargo ships whenever they could. And Tom Hanks plays Ernest Krauss, a captain. We see him relatively early on in a flashback to a scene in a hotel in San Francisco. He's talking about being shipped off to get his first command. He gets a destroyer. He's been placed in the Atlantic as an escort. And the next hour and a half of this movie is a lot of very, very tense and exciting scenes, showing us a lot of combat and specifically combat around surface ships fighting German U-boats, and some technology that is not what we saw, a far cry from all the stuff that we would see in something like The Hunt for Red October. This is the
Or
beginnings of super basic sonar. The radar hardly works. It gets cold enough that they can't use the window wipers on the ships because they've frozen. This movie is really, really tense. It starts off with a hunt from some of these destroyers trying to hunt down a U-boat. It turns out there's a pack of them chasing this convoy, and without their air cover and without the destroyers nearby, these ships are all but defenseless. I really liked this movie, and you're right, this is absolutely a dad movie. Gabe and I watched this. He was super into it. It's very, very well staged. I like that. I haven't read the book, but I've read about the book, and what Tom Hanks does with his adaptation here, I think serves the story really well, because you just kind of get dumped into it. You don't get, it's not like every character's got their thing and there's some background to them. It's just like,
This is 91 minutes. Like, this is lean and mean. Like, talk about cutting to the chase. Like, it is. You get that one scene early on with Elizabeth Shue, and then we're off to the races. It is very spare in that way of the kind of war movie that is about the intricacies of the moment and the step-by-step procedures and processes of surviving a battle and engaging the enemy. And I get the impression, like, between World War II and the space program, like, Tom Hanks loves the analogness of these sort of like vintage action stories that, like, you have to push buttons and you have to, like, everything is so sort of tactile and not computer based at all, and grease pencils on the glass with the map of the ocean and that kind of stuff. There's so much of that.
This is back when your geometry class actually literally helped you survive.
Yeah, and it's all like loudspeakers and everything, and you can tell he loves just the minutia of it, and it doesn't ever feel bogged down in it because all that minutia is relevant to the larger shit. We gotta outrun this U-boat or blow it up kind of thing. So
the man does have a typewriter collection.
That's true. You're right. It's very of a piece. So I'm sure he's got a hand cranked Victrola somewhere, for the, talk about does what it says on the box. Like, it is just this submarine chase, the good guys movie. And it's very effective on that front.
And usually I'm a big fan of lean and mean and like dumping you in and just giving you credit. And like, you know, like The Shallows is a great example of that. The Shallows gives you like the slightest bit of Blake Lively's background. And then there you are on the rock with a shark. This is lean and mean to a fault, to an extent that I was like distracted by it. And I was distracted by Tom Hanks casting as the person at the center of this, because he's supposed to be this inexperienced Navy captain. But he's Tom Hanks.
You always feel like you're in Tom Hanks is in charge.
No,
Yeah.
I maybe the book makes it clear. I see you raising your hand, Matt. Tell me a story.
No, you're right. I mean, it is his first command, right?
Why? But why is he like 60 and he's never commanded a ship before?
Right. The book gets into that.
Okay.
Right. The book, from what I've read, the book gets into that and what's in his head. The book spends a lot more time on that. This one doesn't, right? Like, because if you miss that scene where it's his first command, you kind of wouldn't know, right? Yes,
it's a peacetime
hints.
Navy having to suddenly go to war.
Right.
This is right after Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And
this script does not bother to like tell you what that means. Right.
No, and also the whole bitty flashback scene with Elizabeth Shue in the hotel lobby or wherever it is where they're exchanging Christmas presents. Like, Elizabeth Shue looks amazing, but she's like 53 and he's like 60 something. And they're talking about getting married. And like, is this first marriage for them both? Like, if you had, I feel like all of that would have resonated more if it were characters who were like in their 20s and they were just beginning life and like it's all out there in front of them and they're scared and they're nervous because it's the first time. But like Tom Hanks knows what the fuck he's doing all the time because he's Tom Hanks. He's America's Jazz. We were talking about.
To be fair, she's only 7 years younger than he is. So like as age appropriate co-stars go, they that works.
I love that.
But you're right. They're both too old for these characters being in this place of life there where they're talking about getting married for the first time and you're right, taking on his first command.
It's very distracting.
I hadn't really put a finger on that, but now that you say it, it's like, yes, that's why there's something ultimately unsatisfying about this. And yeah, you don't get that fear, the sort of tension of inexperience. He feels like he was born to this and he's been doing it for decades.
Right. And he's giving commands to the guy to go fetch his slippers in his stateroom and not batting an eye when his heel is bleeding. Like he's sort of going through the motions of knowing what he's doing. But even like the smidgiest smidge more character development would have made me care a whole lot more about whether these people live or die and whether he pulls this thing off under these extraordinarily tense circumstances.
Because you don't doubt him for a second. That is
no. There's never any tension in that. But the battle scenes themselves are tense, and there is a growing sense of claustrophobia, and there's a repetition to it because part of the analog nature of the way that they convey information is like someone's got to see what's happening, and then someone's got to holler out to Tom Hanks on the ship deck like, so-and-so, this is happening. Go this way. Go 30 degrees left. And like, so there's like a mounting tension to the...
They're literally playing telephone the whole time.
Right. Yeah. And so I kind of appreciate that part of it.
Which is germane to when that kid sneezes, right?
Yeah.
Right. Like they show how that can break down, right? There are some things that happen in this movie that I think that Hanks is like, I think he's too subtle, right? Like he sends to, Krause sends somebody to go get his coat and you see like he's so cold because he's been out in the wet and he finally puts his coat on and he's like shivering. And it's a little like, I think it's not till the end of the movie that you start thinking like, yeah, maybe a more experienced captain would take care of himself a little bit better. Right. Like he keeps refusing his meals and he doesn't go to sleep. And
the director is Aaron Schneider, whose work I do not know. I don't know if y'all had seen Get Low or any of his previous films. He was new to me.
I don't.
It has like Bill Murray and Robert Duvall, which I was like, I
didn't see that.
I did not see this movie.
I don't know. Anyway, I mean, again, all the battle stuff is well staged. That stuff's lean and mean, and I got into that. But like, there's an underlying there's something missing. There's something I'm not connecting with this emotionally the way I should.
Yeah, I think he could have taken a little bit more time to kind of show us what it meant for Krause that this is his first command, right? Because they kind of mention that in passing, and then you never really hear about it again. And you have to kind of keep that in your mind as you look at what he's doing, but it's not all completely there, and that's a little frustrating. But for what this movie is setting out to do as far as the tension, it's very, very effective. I do kind of regret. I get where Hanks was frustrated. I bet that this was even more tense on the big screen.
Sure, I'm sure it was a much better experience that way.
We have to mention Stephen Graham as his second in command, and I was going, "Who is that? I know that face." And Dave goes, "The Irishman, Florida, shorts." Oh, him, right?
Anyway, I'm saying 6.1.
7.2.
What did I say? 7.5.
You said 8.5.
Oh, 8.5.
You liked this.
I did like it.
7.3 is our number. It's on Apple TV. If you have that kind of thing, you can watch this.
I say Apple TV Plus. Does anyone have Apple TV Plus? Like, it doesn't. They don't seem to have quite latched on to folks the way that like Disney Plus or HBO Max have. But it's early. Quibi. Who knows? Or Quibi, yes. Well, Quibi is a whole other thing. Boy, speaking of Vulture articles, did you read the Quibi article?
No, is it funny?
Oh man, you'll love it. Okay. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay with lots of exclusive content just for our subscribers. So we hope you'll become one. Until next time, bye.